Hi, Dr. William Starziak here with the Starziak Osteopathic Clinic, and I want to talk to you about some simple nutritional approaches to help improve diet. There is a lot of information out there and a lot of talk about supplementation with vitamins, minerals, herbs, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. But there are a few basic things that need to be done first before that other stuff is really all that beneficial. It's the first 80% of the work in nutrition. So I'm going to talk about those briefly here in this video. The first thing is decreasing refined sugar intake. Refined sugar is associated with a whole host of problems, inflammation for the vascular system, so causing heart problems, being associated with the development of diabetes. It also is associated with reflux. Obviously, it's associated with weight gain, which has a whole suite of negative effects that come along with it. So the first stop on any nutritional intervention is going to be to decrease refined sugar. Ideally, totally cut it out, except rare occasions, a birthday party or something, having a small piece of cake is fine. But it shouldn't be a regular part of the diet. So that means soda shouldn't be a regular part of the diet. Obviously cake, cupcakes, anything that's really sugary. Now, moderate usage of unrefined sugars is quite a good thing. Again, moderate is the key word. So turbinado sugar, jaggery, or agave, maple syrup, honey, all of these things can be used in moderation. The next thing would be to avoid processed foods. Again, evidence shows processed foods are associated with a whole host of health issues, including weight gain, a decrease in the diversity of the microflora, diabetes, cancer. So in general, we should eat foods close to the source, minimally processed. Ideally, we are cooking them ourselves so that we know what's in them. Because even if we eat out and we make a fairly good choice in food, we can avoid processed food, but then we generally run into a low quality of oil that's used. Most restaurants buy the cheapest oil that's available, just regular vegetable oil, which is actually inflammatory to the vascular system. So it's much better to cook our own foods, one, because we're getting whole foods, and then we can use these really good oils that have anti-inflammatory effects for the vascular system and that help make sure bile is cycling over so that we're not developing bile sludge. Regular oil consumption also helps with fat-based detoxification of fat-soluble toxins. So things like extra virgin olive oil, raw sesame oil, unrefined coconut oil, organic walnut oil, sunflower oil, avocado, almond, all of these are really good to have in our diet. Hemp seed oil. And they provide not only these anti-inflammatory effects, but things like walnut and hemp seed provide the precursor for our body to create omega-3s. So another great source of omega-3s are flaxseed oil. As far as in the animal kingdom, fish is a major source of that. If you're going to eat meat, fish is your healthiest choice, and then chicken, turkey, and staying away from pork and beef would be the best bet. And what most studies are, or what studies in general are showing, not most, all of the studies that study this are showing that if we get our meat consumption down to 10% or less of our daily calorie intake, that we have decreased disease burden and increased longevity, increased lifespan. So minimizing meat intake is very beneficial. And then replacing it with other proteins. You can do eggs. You can do cheese that is from humanely treated cows that are grass-fed. Any dairy products really must be grass-fed. If they're not, they're just not healthy to consume, because feeding the cows grass ups the conjugated linoleic acid, which is an anti-inflammatory fatty acid, by 5 times. It's a 500% increase. So if that's not there, the fats in dairy products are actually inflammatory. And having grass-fed cows ensures that the cows are leading a more normal life. You can even investigate your local area to find dairies that let the cows live normal lives so they don't get artificially inseminated, their babies aren't separated from them, that sort of stuff. There is humane dairy out there. And then this would also, of course, include beans, nuts. With beans, the easiest to digest ones are going to be mung beans, lentils, tofu. So unfermented soy products have been associated with some inflammatory issues, but when it's fermented into tofu, it's quite beneficial. If and beans in general can be a little hard to digest, not mung beans and lentils and tofu, but as you even eating those or other beans, or really all of your food, it's good to mix them with spices that help digestion. The top five are going to be cumin, coriander, turmeric, ginger, black pepper. You can also put in there fennel, ajwain, hing. Those are good ones as well. Cinnamon is good. All of the European spices like thyme, marjoram, oregano, basil, bay leaf, those all have their place as well in stimulating the digestive function. Some of them have antibacterial effects. Some of them feed the beneficial bacteria in the body. So cooking with spices, that's another principle of good eating. It stimulates appetite and helps with digestion. So far, decrease sugar, decrease meat, increase other healthier forms of protein, beans, nuts, eggs, grass-fed cheeses, whole grains. As we get older, like 30 and over, really not using wheat very much at all. If we do, using it as sprouted grain or sourdough in the fall and the winter, when the bacteria that are better at digesting gluten are in greater abundance. And in the spring and the summer, really avoiding wheat. Historically, that's how humans have used it to get through the winter. When we're younger, we can be a little bit more liberal with wheat, but still avoiding processed wheat, preserved forms of wheat products, and using more sourdough, sprouted grain breads, or fresh breads that we're consuming in the fall and the winter mostly. And then not having it every day, not having it for every meal. Studies show kids that are fed wheat very frequently are more likely to become gluten sensitive or develop full-on celiac disease. So that's another principle, is that transition of the relationship with wheat. Next, there's seasonal eating. So try to have most of your fruits and vegetables be seasonal. So whatever is available in that season. So then in the fall and the winter, you need to cook most of those seasonally available foods. The winter squashes, butternut, acorn, spaghetti, the root vegetables, parsnips, carrots, beets, onions, garlic. And then in the spring and summer, there's a lot more food that can be eaten raw, and it's beneficial to be eaten raw. What this does is it feeds the bacteria that are present in that season, because they eat the foods that are present. And those bacteria will thrive in that season, so they'll be able to help protect from infection and to help digest the foods that are present in that season. As an interesting anecdote, deers, for instance, if you feed them greens or corn, fresh corn in the winter, they're likely to die because they don't have the bacteria present to digest it. Human beings don't have this same degree of limitation, but we do have that dynamic of changing bacteria. So we will digest winter foods better in the winter and spring foods better in the spring. And we typically eat more in the fall and the winter and gain weight, and then we'll eat less in the spring and summer and lose weight. Lastly is exercise. Research shows that the ideal amount of exercise is 75 minutes of intense activity or 150 minutes of moderate activity. So that means for every minute of intense activity, it's worth 2 minutes of moderate activity. And you can divide that up. So you can do part intense, part moderate, but over the course of a week, you should get to that total. You can use different ways to get there, but basically intense is you're working so hard, you can't keep a conversation going. Moderate is your pulse is elevated, you're breathing hard, you're beginning to sweat a little, but you could still hold a conversation. So these are the basic principles: decreasing sugar, decreasing meat, increasing high quality fats, getting appropriate exercise, eating seasonally to take care of the microflora, maximize digestion, and cooking with these beneficial spices. If you have any questions, please contact me. My email is info@drstarsiak.com. You can find out more about my practice on www.drstarsiak.com. So, please look at my other videos, subscribe, and contact me with any questions.